What is Judaism? In this video, we're going to discuss what Judaism is and how it's different from other Abrahamic faiths like Christianity and Islam. So we're going to talk about Abraham. I'll tell you a little bit about what most Jews have in common, but I'll also share with you different examples of denominations of Judaism. We're very briefly going to talk about some Jewish history as well. Let's get started. Judaism is a religion. It's a theist religion, a religion that believes in something supernatural or a divinity, something above this natural world. And in Judaism, it is a monotheistic religion because it only believes in one single God. Pause. We're going to think about this more later, but there is a version of Judaism that's called secular Judaism. And that's Judaism, which is a religion without all of the practice of worshiping a deity. There is one single, universal God. But you'd have to ask a Jewish person what they mean by that. And that's the tricky part. The descendants of Noah are the Semitic people, and the Semite word for God is El. And from this, we get many different names for God in Hebrew. For example, Elohim, that's one of the names for God. It's one of the two main ways to call upon the name of the Lord. Another name for God is this four-letter word, which is a tetragrammaton of the name of God, and it is not actually the full name, as some of the letters and parts of what you would pronounce have been taken out to keep the actual full name of God a secret, sacred thing not to be taken in vain. Some Jews will just use the word Hashem as the name of God, which literally translates to something like, this is the name of God. And then there's other variations. So Jews believe in one single universal God. God is the creator. Everything in this world is from God. God is the lawgiver. All right and wrong things are dictated by God. When we think about this lawgiver, we might have to think about the 10 commandments that were given to Moses at the top of Mount Sinai. But in Judaism, there are not only the 10 commandments. Every time God told man to do anything, it's counted as a law and commandment. So there are hundreds of commandments in Judaism. God interacts with nature. So God did not just merely create the world and then walk away from it, as some deists say. There is a view called deism where there is a God who created everything but then walked away, and God is not interacting or listening or interfering, so it doesn't matter if you pray. That's not the case in Judaism, where God is interacting with nature, and so you do practice forgiveness, and God will forgive, which is a part of Yom Kippur, one of the holiest moments of Rosh Hashanah, of this larger holiday in Judaism. And fourthly, God is love. This does not only apply to the Jewish people. In Judaism, the Jews are asked to love every single being, and that law to love applies universally to everyone. So there is no killing in Judaism. Abraham is a very special person in Judaism. Islam, Christianity, and Judaism are three of the major Abrahamic faiths. What that means is that the three religions come from a lineage going back all the way to Abraham. Abraham's firstborn son was with Hagar, and his name is Ishmael, who is the father of the 12 Arabic tribes, out of which Muhammad is a descendant. And Muhammad is a prophet in the religion Islam. And Abraham's second son is with Sarah, who is the mother and father of Isaac, who gives birth to Jacob, later renamed Israel, which leads to the 12 tribes of Israel, which give rise to Moses, who is a prophet in Judaism. Other than with Hagar and Sarah, Abraham has a third wife, with whom he has even more children. And that's Keturah, with whom he has 6 sons. Mary, a Jewish woman with whom God has a human child, Jesus, who is a prophet in Christianity. Judaism is one of the 3 major Abrahamic faiths, and it is called that because Judaism and Islam and Christianity are all going back to one lineage, a man named Ibrahim or Abraham, originally Abram or Abram, and he was told by God when entering the covenant that he would be the father of many nations. God first goes to Abram, a man in Ur, and tells him to get up and go. Imagine God coming up to you and saying, hey, get all the things you need, take everyone, and just leave to a place where I will show you. Abram does that, and he wanders throughout Mesopotamia, through Syria, through the land Canaan, all the way to Egypt, and his people continue on this wandering until finally they make it out of Egypt. That's the role of Moses. Into Canaan, which they had originally passed through. That's the role of Joshua. And then we finally have the first kingdom of Israel under Saul, who's called the first king. The second king of Israel is also very important, David. The Star of David, which you might have seen, is named after this king, David, the second king of Israel. And David is famous for a lot of things. You might have heard of him through the story David and Goliath. Goliath is a Philistine who David is trying to conquer. He does conquer the Philistines, and he kills so many of them, and he names Jerusalem the capital for the Jews. A side note about this image is that the symbol was appropriated when the Jews were in Egypt, which is in Africa. This is an ancient symbol of Africans that when the Jews arrived in Africa, they took it as their own and appropriated it. And today, this is called by the Jews the Star of David, named after the man who finally conquered Jerusalem. David was very prosperous for the Jews, and so was his son Solomon. There are many stories about Solomon being wise and prudent and obedient to God, and also being favored by God. Solomon erected many temples for the Jews throughout Jerusalem. If you ask a Jewish person, what is the holiest place on earth for you, they might talk about the Western Wall, sometimes called the Wailing Wall. This is a wall which is still standing today, street level. You can walk up right to it depending on politics. And it is the wall of a very old temple that was originally built. Well, okay, hold on. Let's talk about some history. Solomon did build a huge, beautiful, very intricate temple. And it was later destroyed by the Babylonians, who entered Jerusalem, destroyed the building. Many Jews were not only dispersed throughout the ancient world, but also taken as slaves to places like Babylonia. When Cyrus the Great takes over Babylon, what he does is he frees all of the Jews that were living in captivity there, and he gives them money to go back to Jerusalem and rebuild their lost temple. So because of this Zoroastrian Persian king, the Jews go back to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple, which is later called the temple that was later destroyed by the Romans. Under Emperor Titus, in around the year 70, there's again a destruction of the rebuilt temple. But to this day, there is a wall that is remaining of the temple that was destroyed by the Romans, that was helped built by the Persians, that was a remnant of what was destroyed by the Babylonians, that was originally built through King Solomon, the son of David, who's the second king of Israel. And this is a sign to Jews of their resilience and their continuance, that they will not be broken completely. This Wailing Wall, or Western Wall, has a lot of very interesting history. After it was funded by Persians, destroyed by the Romans, restored by the Arabs through the Middle Ages, the Jews were also restricted from practicing their religion at that wall when the British had control, and then when the Jordanians had control, they banned Jews from even accessing the area. And today, all of that is history because the wall and Jerusalem is completely under the power of Israel. So much for the holiest place. Let's turn to different denominations within Judaism. Judaism has lots of different ways to practice. For example, a Hasidic Jew and a Reform Jew disagree about whether a woman could be a rabbi. The word rabbi is something akin to something like priest or imam or guru. And in Reform Judaism, in 1972, they had their first woman rabbi. If you'd like to read some Jewish sacred text, check out the Torah, and that literally translates to the laws. If you're a Christian, as most people on this planet currently are, you've probably read parts of the Torah. What you would call in your Christian Bible the Old Testament is most of the Torah. But if you want to read some texts that are specific to Judaism and not mixed with Christianity, your best bet is to check out the Jewish sacred text, the Talmud. Now remember, it is no surprise that the Christian book begins with the sacred text of Judaism because the Christians were originally Jews, as Jesus is the son of a Jewish woman, Mary, whose descendant is Moses, going back to Abraham, going back to Noah. And this is, again, remember, an Abrahamic faith.